Welcome back to this class. In the last class, we started with introduction to candlesticks, and in this class, we are going to continue with that topic. And here we're going to be talking about candlestick anatomy. Basically everything we spoke about in that last class, we want to look at how they are actually represented on the chart. Okay, now on the screen we have two different types of candlesticks. We have a bullish candlestick and we also have bear candlesticks. Now when you see a candlestick like this, you can see that there is something that looks like a stick up, and there's something like that down, right? Now there is also something that we labeled as real body. Okay, now let me quickly tell you exactly what happened in this particular scenario. Okay, as you can see that price is actually opened. Okay, look, price opened at this particular point. So what happened is that when that particular session opened, the sellers in the market, what happened is this: there are sellers, like I said the other time, there are sellers and there are buyers in this market, in financial market. Okay, now what sellers does is to mix supplies into the market. Okay, and of course the buyers are the one making demand on whatever instrument. Now, going by our very basic knowledge of economics, when buyers are more than sellers, when people who wants to buy something are far much more than what is available, what is going to happen to price? Price will certainly go up, right? And when a particular commodity is surplus in market, what will happen to price? Price is going to drop. You know, at the time of this recording, there are some parts of the country. There are parts of the nation where people are actually getting petroleum products for as high as 300 naira per liter. Why is that? Why is that? It's just because the commodity is scarce. The supply in market is not up to what people, it's not enough to satisfy the demand by the people. Okay, so the price has to jump up, right? So that is actually basic. It's actually very basic, very, very basic. Now let's get back to our candlestick anatomy. Using that particular knowledge of supply and demand in the market. Now, what happened in a bullish candlestick is that when this price opened, as in when the session opened at this particular price, the sellers actually came in and forced the price down. And there at that particular session, we are able to, we got to this particular low. Okay, the sellers in that market, immediately the session opened, the sellers pushed the price down up to this particular point, and there we have the lowest of that particular session. Now when they got to this particular place, this is when demand now came in. The buyers stepped into that market and took control of that market. They placed demand on that market that was able to, gob every supply that was actually in that particular market. And just because the supply was not enough, okay, because the supply was not enough, the price was pushed. The price was pushed up, okay, was pushed up, and it got to this particular high, okay. It got to this particular high. This is where you have the highest, the highest high bid price. Now, then there's some level of supplies that eventually came that pushed the price a little bit down. And at the end of that particular session, the price closed at this particular place. Okay. Now, going by the definition of our bullish candle, it means that this particular session opened at a lower price and it closed at a higher price. Now, it doesn't matter the color of the candle. I'm still going to teach you how to, to color code your candles. Now, some people use green candles for their bullish candlesticks. Some people use blue. On a normal day, I usually use blue, to really depict my bullish candlestick. Now, this what you have. This shaded part is what we call the real body, right? And this one, this one, you call it shadow. You can call it shadow, you can call it wick, WICK. You can call it wick. This is actually your upper wick or upper shadow. You can also have this as what? As lower what? As lower shadow or lower wick. Now, the wick is telling you about rejection. Okay. The price was actually forced down in this particular place before it was rejected by the buyers, and price was actually what? Was moved up. It was moved up to this particular high before the sellers also what? Reject the price from that particular place and pushed it down a little bit. Now, so let's quickly look at our bearish candlestick. Now, look at bearish candlestick. Bearish candlestick is basically the opposite of what happened in, of what happened during the, the opposite of what happened in your bullish candlestick. Now, look at this. The price here, the price opened at this particular point, okay? And buyers were in charge. They pushed the price up by their demand, okay, for that instrument. And the sellers stepped in. They rejected the price from that particular place, and they supplied excess that mopped up every demand in that market as at that particular moment. And the price was rejected. The price got rejected from this point, and price was pushed down. Price was pushed down until it got to this low price. This is the lowest price. Then some demand came in, some buyers stepped in, and they pushed the price back to this particular point. So at the end of that trading session, the price closed at this particular point. Now, what made this bearish candlestick is because the price opened higher and it closed lower. Okay, it means that the sellers during this session, the sellers were very much in control of the market in bearish candlestick. So when you see a bearish candlestick, it is basically telling you who is in charge. It's telling you that the sellers are in charge during that particular session. When you see a bullish candlestick, It means that the buyers are in charge of that particular session. I hope that is understood. Okay, all right. So let's quickly move on to the next slide. All right. Now you can see that we have different candlestick body size. The body size of a candlestick is basically telling you about the volume, is actually telling you the volume that goes on, that was pumped in, the volume of money that was pumped in, the volume of orders that was pumped in during that particular session. So when you see these big bodies, it's telling you that there is a lot of orders that went in during that particular period. And when you see these small bodies, it's telling you that there are really very little volume of orders, very little orders that were, that were pumped in, that were placed during that particular session. So when you see the long bodies, it's telling you about the force, the demand or the supply, as the case might be, the demand or the supply during that, the volume of supply, the volume of demand at that particular period, um, in that period in time. And of course, like I told you, when you see this week is telling you about rejection. When you see it upper, it means that it was actually rejected by the upper one is actually rejected by sellers. And when you see lower week, it means that it's actually rejection by the buyers. And the same thing actually goes on right there. Okay, so let's quickly look at these two. Um, Candlestick shadow, tail, or wick. So basically, you can actually call this, like I told you, you can call it a tail, you can call it a wick, you can call it shadow, right? Now, this is your upper shadow, okay? You can call it upper wick or upper shadow. Now, as you can see that there's the when you see a long wick or a long shadow like this, it means that the rejection that happened during that period is really what is really massive. It's a massive rejection. Okay, what happened is that when this particular session opened, price was price was actually pushed up. Was actually pushed up, and this by the buyers, and sellers actually came in and they pushed the price back all down. They push it all down back to this particular lowest place until some demand also came in and pushed it up a little bit. But you can see there's a big rejection by the sellers. They supply a whole lot of orders or a whole lot of stuff into that particular market during this particular moment. And this is basically the opposite of that. Now, when this particular session opened, it was pushed down, price was pushed down by sellers, by suppliers, until demand actually came in, buyers came in, and they mop up everything that was supplied during this particular session. And there was still far much more demand. So because demand was more than supply during that particular moment, and price was what? Price was pushed up a little bit, and it got to this particular point, and there are some others. There are some supplies that also came, but they were not enough to push the price back to where it was actually coming from. So it was actually, it closed at the upper wherever. Now, what it means is that all this big week is telling you there is a big rejection by the buyers, that the buyers are what they are actually in charge during that particular session. Okay, now we have come to the end of this particular model. See you in the next one.